The Discovery Story description: Commander Vexstar of the Catherian Empire leads a routine exploration mission to what appears to be a primitive world called Earth. The Catherians expect an easy conquest, but their scans reveal impossible energy signatures beneath the planet's surface. When they attempt first contact, they receive transmissions containing advanced mathematical sequences that shouldn't exist in any primitive civilization's database. The story Commander Vexstar stood before the massive viewing screen of the Catherian exploration vessel Void Seeker. The blue and green world slowly rotated before him, its white clouds swirling in peaceful patterns. It looked like any other primitive planet they had catalogued over the past century. Water covered most of its surface, and the landmasses showed signs of basic civilization. Cities dotted the continents with simple geometric patterns, and primitive flying machines moved through the atmosphere. "Status report," Vexstar commanded in his deep, authoritative voice. His forearms folded behind his back as he studied the planet below. Science Officer Krelthan approached with his data tablet. "Sir, initial scans confirm a Type 2 civilization. They have basic nuclear technology and primitive spaceflight. Population approximately 8 billion. Multiple species, but one dominant form appears to control most of the planet." Vexstar nodded. This was exactly what they expected. Another backward world ripe for integration into the Catherian Empire. "Have they detected our presence?" "Negative. Sir, their scanning technology is too primitive to detect our cloaking fields. We can observe them without interference." The commander smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Excellent. Begin standard first contact protocols. We'll give them the usual choice: join the Empire willingly or be conquered." But as Krelthan began his work, something strange appeared on his scanner. His reptilian features twisted in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures." "What kind of signatures?" "Are coming from beneath the planet's surface. Very deep. The energy readings are ... impossible." Vexstar moved closer to examine the data. The readings showed power levels that rivaled their own mothership. "You certain these readings are accurate?" "I've run the scan 3 times, sir." "The signatures are definitely there, but that's not the strangest part." Krelthan's voice dropped to a whisper. "The energy patterns are older than our own technology, much older." On the planet's surface, Dr. Hyanwu was working late in his laboratory at Seoul National University. The xenobiologist had spent his entire career studying the possibility of life beyond Earth. Tonight, he was analyzing radio signals from deep space, hoping to find patterns that might indicate intelligent life. His computer suddenly began beeping rapidly. New signals were coming in, but these were different from the usual cosmic background noise. They were structured, organized, and definitely artificial. "This is impossible," Hyanwu muttered as he adjusted his equipment. The signals were coming from somewhere just beyond the moon's orbit, but his instruments couldn't detect any physical object there at the same time. Commander Ji-hai was reviewing routine reports at the Korean Space Force headquarters. An officer had been monitoring satellite communications when her systems detected unusual electromagnetic activity in near-Earth space. "Lieutenant Park?" She called to her assistant. "Are you seeing these readings?" "Yes, ma'am." "Ain't. Something is definitely out there. The patterns suggest advanced technology, but nothing shows up on our visual scanners." Ji-hai frowned. Her training had prepared her for many scenarios, but this was beyond anything in the manual. "Send word to the International Space Station. Tell them to be ready for anything." High above Earth, Taemin was conducting routine maintenance on the station's communication array. The young engineer had always been good with technology, often understanding complex systems faster than his colleagues. As he worked, he noticed something strange in the electrical patterns flowing through the circuits. The patterns seemed almost alive, pulsing in rhythms that reminded him of music. Without thinking, he began adjusting the array to match these rhythms. The moment he did, the entire station's communication system came alive with new signals. Back on the Void Seeker, Vexstar was growing impatient. "Krelthan, I want answers. How can a primitive civilization have energy signatures that predate our empire?" "Sir, our historical databases show similar patterns from millions of years ago. They match references to something called the Star Shepherds, But those are just legends. Legends? Vextor's voice rose. You're telling me that legends are generating power readings that rival our own ship? Before Krelthin could respond, their communication officer interrupted.
House, sir.
We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Impossible. They don't have the technology to penetrate our cloaking. Nevertheless, sir, the transmission is coming through clearly. It's directed specifically at us. Vextar hesitated. No primitive civilization had ever detected them before first contact. Put it through. The transmission crackled to life. A clear, confident voice spoke in perfect Catherian language. Unknown vessel, this is Commander HFY of the Korean Space Force. We are aware of your presence in our space. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. The bridge fell silent. Vextar's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. How do they know our language? The transmission continued. We have detected your scanning attempts and wish to establish peaceful contact. We are transmitting our mathematical and scientific databases as a gesture of goodwill. Data began flooding. Their computers. Krelthin's hands moved frantically over his controls as he tried to process the incoming information. Sir, these mathematical sequences, they're solving problems that our best scientists haven't figured out yet. This is impossible, Vextor stared at the planet below. The peaceful blue world suddenly seemed much more threatening. Open a channel. Channel open, sir. This is Commander Vextar of the Catherian Empire. How do you know our language and technology? There was a pause before HFY responded. We have been waiting for you to arrive, Commander. We know many things about your people and your empire. Perhaps it is time we met face to face. Dr. Hanwoo is now working frantically in his laboratory. The radio signals had intensified, and his computers were processing data at speeds that should have been impossible. Mathematical formulas appeared on his screens, formulas that described technologies beyond human understanding, yet somehow he understood them perfectly. What's happening to me? He whispered as knowledge flooded his mind. Images of distant stars, massive ships, and advanced civilizations filled his thoughts. None of it made sense, but all of it felt familiar. On the Void Seeker, Vextar was struggling to maintain his composure. Krelthin, explain to me how a primitive civilization can communicate with us as equals. Sir, I'm analyzing their transmission data. The mathematical sequences they sent contain information about stellar engineering, faster than light travel, and energy manipulation techniques that are beyond our current understanding. That's impossible, sir. There's more. The energy signatures from beneath their planet's surface are growing stronger. It's as if our presence is activating something that's been dormant for millions of years. Vextar looked out at the innocent-looking planet below. Everything about this mission had gone wrong from the moment they arrived. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. But now he was facing a civilization that somehow possessed knowledge that surpassed his own empire's technology. Sir, the communication officer called out, we're receiving another transmission. This one contains star charts showing the location of every Catherian world in the Empire. They know where we came from. The commander's blood ran cold. No one outside the Empire should have that information. How is this possible? Commander HFY's voice came through the speakers again. Commander Vextar, we suggest you prepare for a revelation that will change everything you thought you knew about this galaxy. The children of Earth have been sleeping for a very long time, but your arrival has begun to wake us up. As if responding to her words, the energy signatures from beneath Earth's surface suddenly doubled in intensity. Ancient systems that had been silent for eons began to stir, and across the planet humans began to remember things they had never learned. The discovery was complete. But Vextar realized he had not discovered Earth. Instead, Earth had discovered him. Echoes of the past story description Dur. Hanwoo leads an international team investigating seismic anomalies that began when alien ships appeared. Deep beneath the Korean peninsula, they discover vast chambers filled with crystalline structures that respond to human presence. The crystals display star maps and cosmic histories, while the Catherians realize Earth's electromagnetic field is artificial, maintained by ancient satellites hidden for millions of years. The story, 3 days after the first contact, Strange earthquakes began shaking the Korean peninsula. Dr. Hyenwoo stood in the emergency command center, watching seismic readings that made no scientific sense. The earthquakes were too regular, too organized. They formed patterns that looked almost like a heartbeat. Dr. Hyenwoo called Soo-jin, the lead archaeologist on the team. "You need to see this. The earthquake epicenters are all pointing to the same location." Hyenwoo studied the map she handed him. Every tremor originated from deep beneath the demilitarized zone in an area that had been off limits for decades. "How deep are we talking about? 20 kilometers down?" "That's not the strangest part." Jin's voice was filled with excitement and fear. "Ground-penetrating radar shows massive hollow spaces down there. Chambers that are definitely not natural." Captain Jinho, the military officer assigned to their team, stepped forward. "Dr. Hyenwoo, I have orders from the highest levels. We're going down there." The excavation began immediately. Using advanced drilling equipment, they bored through solid rock toward the mysterious chambers. As they descended, the rock around them began to change. What started as normal granite transformed into something that looked almost crystalline. "This material is not from Earth," whispered Minji, the young research assistant. She was analyzing samples as they came up from the AS drill. "The molecular structure is completely unknown. It's like nothing in our periodic table." When they finally broke through into the first chamber, the team stood in absolute silence. The cavern stretched beyond the reach of their lights, filled with towering crystal formations that pulsed with soft blue light. The crystals were arranged in perfect geometric patterns, forming corridors and rooms like a vast underground city. "My God," breathed Hyenwoo. "How long has this been here?" Soo-jin was already taking measurements. "Based on the geological layers above, this has been sealed for at least 2 million years. But the crystals are still active." Into the chamber, something incredible happened. The crystals began responding to their presence. When Minji approached one of the formations, it brightened and began projecting images into the air. Star maps appeared, showing constellations that slowly shifted and changed over millions of years. "It's showing us galactic history," Minji said in wonder. "Look, there's our solar system, but the stars are in different positions." Captain Jinho was more cautious. "How is it responding to us? We haven't touched anything?" "It's scanning us," Hyenwoo realized. "These crystals are reading our genetic codes?" The images suddenly changed. Now they showed spacecraft, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. The ships moved between stars, visiting world after world. On each planet, the same pattern repeated. Primitive species were contacted, taught, and guided to advancement. "They're teachers," Soo-jin whispered. "These ships are helping younger civilizations." But the most shocking revelation came when the crystals showed the faces of these cosmic teachers. They were human. It's not exactly like modern humans, but close. Enough that there was no doubt about their identity. "That's impossible," Jinho said. "Humans have only been civilized for a few thousand years." The crystal seemed to understand his confusion. New images appeared showing Earth as it was millions of years ago. The planet was covered with massive cities, technology that seemed to blend perfectly with nature. Humans lived in harmony with their world while simultaneously reaching out to the stars. Meanwhile, high above Earth, the Catherian science teams were making their own disturbing discoveries. Science Officer Krelthin had been analyzing Earth's magnetic field when he noticed something that should have been impossible. "Commander Vexstar?" he called urgently. "The planet's electromagnetic field is artificial." Vexstar joined him at the sensor station. "What do you mean artificial?" "Sir, no natural planet has a magnetic field this perfectly stable. I've been tracking the field lines and they're being generated by a network of objects in space." "What kind of objects?" "Satellites?" "Sir, but they're not showing up on any of our sensors. They're completely invisible to our technology." Vexstar felt a chill run down his spine. "How many satellites?" "Thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. They form a perfect grid around the planet. And based on the energy readings, they've been operational for millions of years." The implications were staggering. No primitive civilization could build such a network. No civilization in the known galaxy had technology that could remain hidden from Catharian sensors. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting similar networks around other worlds throughout the galaxy. Worlds that we thought were uninhabited." Vexter stared at the data streaming across his screens. Every world that the Catharian Empire had cataloged as empty was actually protected by the same invisible satellite network. They had been living in a galaxy filled with hidden technology for their entire existence. Back in the underground chambers, Dr. Hyanwu was experiencing something that defied explanation. As he touched one of the larger crystals, knowledge began flooding his mind. Not just images or data, but complete understanding of technologies that shouldn't exist. He saw how the satellite networks operated, using principles of physics that human science had never discovered. He understood how faster-than-light travel worked not just as theory, but as practical engineering. Most incredibly, he began to remember things that had never happened to him. "Dr. Hyanwu," Minji called out. "Are you all right?" He turned to look at her, and for a moment, she seemed different. Not just the young research assistant he knew, but something more. Something ancient and powerful. "I remember you," he said, without thinking. "You were there when we seeded the fourth spiral arm?" Minji's eyes widened. "What did you just say?" "I don't know. I don't understand what's happening to me." Sujin was having similar experiences. As she studied the crystal formations, she began to understand their purpose. They weren't just recording devices or computers. They were memory storage units, containing the experiences and knowledge of an entire civilization. "These crystals contain the memories of the Star Shepherds," she announced to the team. "The beings who built this place. They stored everything here before they went into hiding." Captain Jinho was skeptical. "Hiding from what?" The crystals responded to his question by showing them images of space itself being torn apart. Stars exploded in unnatural patterns. Entire solar systems were consumed by expanding waves of destruction. The cosmos itself was dying, and the Star Shepherds were the only ones with the power to stop it. They sacrificed themselves, Hyanwu realized. They used their own life force to heal the galaxy. But first, they hid their knowledge and their essence here on Earth? But why Earth? Minji asked. The answer came not from the crystals, but from Hyanwu's own awakening memories. Because Earth was their home. This is where humanity began millions of years ago. We were the Star Shepherds. The revelation hit the team like a physical blow. They were not just discovering an ancient civilization, they were discovering their own forgotten heritage. On the Voidseeker, Vexstar was dealing with his own shocking revelation. His science teams had been analyzing the genetic samples they had collected from Earth's atmosphere. The results were impossible to ignore. Sir Krelthan reported, "Human DNA contains encrypted information, its mathematical sequences, star charts, and technological specifications. It's like their entire species is a living library." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, sir, but there's more. Our own genetic records show signs of artificial modification, modifications that match the encryption patterns in human DNA." Vexstar felt the foundations of his worldview crumbling. "Are you saying that humans modified our species?" "Sir, I'm saying that humans created our species. Every intelligent race in the galaxy shows signs of the same genetic modifications. We're all children of the Star Shepherds." As this truth sank in, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The invisible satellite network around Earth was activating. Ancient systems that had been dormant for millions of years were coming online. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's coming from multiple locations simultaneously. Put it through." Dr. Hyanwu's voice filled the bridge, but it carried an authority that hadn't been there before. "Commander Vexstar, we are grateful for your patience as we remember who we are. The awakening has begun. Soon the Star Shepherds will return to guide the galaxy once again." The transmission ended, leaving the Catharian crew in stunned silence. Below them, the blue planet continued its peaceful rotation, but now they knew the truth. They were not the discoverers. They were the discovered. Their ancient creators were finally coming home. Taemin woke up screaming on the International Space Station. His dreams had been filled with images of massive space battles, ships the size of cities firing weapons that could destroy entire star systems. But the most terrifying part was that he had been there. He remembered commanding fleets, making decisions that affected billions of lives. Double quotes, Tay-Min. Are you okay? Asked Dr. Sarah Chen, the station's medical officer, as she rushed to his sleeping quarters. I'm fine, he lied, wiping sweat from his forehead. Just a bad dream. It wasn't just a dream. As he looked out at the stars through the station's viewing port, he could name every constellation, not just the ones visible from Earth, but star patterns from hundreds of different worlds. Knowledge that should have been impossible filled his mind. The changes weren't limited to the space station. Across Earth, humans were experiencing similar awakenings. Dr. Haywan, a geneticist at Seoul National University, was analyzing blood samples from volunteers when she noticed something extraordinary. This is impossible, she muttered, staring at her computer screen. The DNA sequences she was studying were changing in real time, not evolving or mutating, but revealing information that had been hidden within the genetic code for millions of years. Captain Wujin was experiencing the changes firsthand. The fighter pilot had been conducting routine training exercises when he suddenly understood the aerodynamics of aircraft he had never seen. When his squadron encountered a formation of mysterious objects in the sky, he instinctively knew how to communicate with them. Base, this is Eagle 1, he radioed. I'm reading unknown aircraft, but somehow I know their flight patterns. Eagle 1, those aren't aircraft. They're extraterrestrial vessels. I know, Wujin replied calmly, and I know how to talk to them. Without waiting for orders, he began transmitting a series of mathematical sequences. The alien ships responded, immediately adjusting their formation to match his suggestions. Somehow, he was speaking their language fluently in a small village outside Seoul. Elder Sang-ho was experiencing memories that stretched back impossibly far. The old man had always been known for his wisdom, but now he remembered events from millions of years ago. He remembered the great decision to hide, the sacrifice that had saved the galaxy, and the long wait for the children to return. The star shepherds are waking up, he told his granddaughter Min-young. The cosmos is calling us home. Ainung looked at her grandfather with concern. Grandfather, you're talking about legends. No, child, I'm talking about memories. Our memories. Humanity's memories. On the Void Seeker, Commander Vexstar was dealing with reports that made no sense. His engineering teams were monitoring human technology development, expecting to see gradual progress. Instead, they were witnessing impossible advancement. So reported Chief Engineer Mordok. The humans have reverse-engineered our cloaking technology. In 6 hours, that's impossible. It took our scientists decades to develop cloaking. Sir, that's not the worst of it. They're improving on our designs. Their version is more efficient than ours. Vexstar studied the data streaming across his screens. Human facilities around the globe were producing technology that shouldn't exist. Factories that had been building simple electronics yesterday were now manufacturing components for faster-than-light drives. How are they doing this? He demanded science. Officer Krelthon approached with his latest analysis. Sir, we've been monitoring their internet communications. They're sharing information at an incredible rate. But the knowledge they're sharing doesn't come from any existing human database. Where is it coming from? From them, sir. From their minds. They're remembering technologies that predate our entire civilization. Dr. Haywan was making the same discovery from the other side. As she studied the genetic awakening, she realized that human DNA was not just carrying information about technology. It was carrying the complete scientific knowledge of an advanced galactic civilization. 8. The Star Shepherds didn't just hide their memories, she explained to her research team. They hid their entire accumulated knowledge in our genetic code. Every human on Earth is carrying the scientific discoveries of millions of years. Tay-Min was putting this knowledge to practical use. Working with the space station's limited resources, he began modifying the communication array. His hands moved. With the confidence of someone who had built similar devices thousands of times before. Tay-Min, what are you doing? Asked Commander Leo, the station's commanding officer. I'm building a quantum communication system, Tay-Min replied without looking up from his work. We need to establish contact with the other awakening sites. That's impossible. We don't have the technology for quantum communications. We do. Now, when Taman activated his improvised device, it connected instantly with similar systems that were spontaneously appearing around the globe. Humans were building advanced technology using nothing but scrap materials and recovered memories. Captain Woojin was discovering that his new abilities extended far beyond communication. During a test flight, his aircraft began responding to his thoughts rather than his controls. The machine was adapting to him, becoming an extension of his consciousness. Control. This is Eagle 1, he reported. My aircraft is exhibiting impossible performance characteristics. Eagle 1, your readings show you're flying at speeds that should tear your plane apart. I know, but the aircraft is protecting itself. It's using some kind of energy field. Same phenomenon was occurring worldwide. Human technology was advancing not through traditional research and development, but through the awakening of genetic memories. People were remembering how to build things they had never seen, how to manipulate energy in ways that defied known physics. Elder Sang-ho was serving as a guide for these awakening humans. His restored memories were more complete than most, allowing him to help others understand what was happening to them. We were the teachers, he explained to a gathering of confused scientists and military officers. For millions of years, we traveled the galaxy, nurturing younger species, helping them develop their own civilizations. But why did we stop? Asked Dr. Haywan. Because the cosmos was dying. Great catastrophe was spreading across the galaxy, destroying everything in its path. We had to choose between saving ourselves and saving everyone else. And we chose to save everyone else, Dr. Hyan-woo added. He had traveled from the crystal chambers to hear Elder Sang-ho's account.
Well, we
poured our life force into healing the galaxy. But first, we hid our knowledge and our essence here on Earth. We became primitive again, waiting for the right time to return. On the Void Seeker, Vexstar was receiving reports that confirmed this incredible story. His historical research teams had been analyzing their oldest databases, searching for any reference to the Star Shepherds. Sir Krelthin reported, "We found references in our most ancient texts. The Star Shepherds were real. They guided the development of our species. Over 1,000,000 years ago, what happened to them? According to our legends, they sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy from something called the Great Darkness. But the legends also say they would return when the cosmos was ready." Vexstar looked out at the peaceful blue planet below. And now they're returning, sir. There's more. We've been monitoring similar awakenings on other worlds throughout the galaxy. Every species that was guided by the Star Shepherds is beginning to remember their true history. The implications were staggering. The Catherian Empire, which had considered itself the dominant power in the galaxy, was actually just one of many species that owed their existence to humanity. And now their creators were awakening from a self-imposed exile that had lasted millions of years back on Earth. The awakening was accelerating. Humans who had been ordinary people just days before were now demonstrating abilities that seemed impossible. They could interface directly with advanced technology, understand alien languages instinctively, and access knowledge that spanned millions of years. Tae-Min had become the focal point for space-based awakening. His modifications to the space station had transformed it into a hub for quantum communication with the growing network of awakened humans. Through his link, he could feel the consciousness of his species expanding. "We're not just individuals anymore," he reported to Earth. "We're becoming connected." The Star Shepherds weren't just teachers. They were a collective consciousness, a single mind distributed across millions of bodies. Dr. Haywan was documenting the genetic changes as they occurred. The awakening is accelerating exponentially. At this rate, every human on Earth will have access to Star Shepherd memories within days. Captain Wu Jin was leading the first squadron of human pilots who could interface directly with their aircraft. Their planes were no longer just machines, but extensions of their consciousness, capable of maneuvers that defied physics. "This is what we used to be," he reported after a test flight. "We didn't just build technology, we became one with it." Elder Sang-ho was preparing for what he knew would come next. The awakening is only the beginning, he warned. Soon, the other species will remember too. The galaxy will know that the Star Shepherds have returned. As if responding to his words, communication arrays around Earth began receiving signals from distant worlds. The Catherians were not the only ones who had detected humanity's awakening. Across the galaxy, species that had been guided by the Star Shepherds millions of years ago were beginning to remember their true history. The cosmos was about to be reminded of who humanity really was. The moment had come. Around the world, every crystal chamber discovered in the past week began to glow with brilliant light. Dr. Hanwoo stood in the main chamber beneath the Korean peninsula, watching as the ancient crystals synchronized their energy patterns with similar installations across Earth. "It's happening," he whispered to Sujin. "They're all connecting." The crystals rose from their positions, floating in perfect formation around the chamber. Energy arced between them, creating a massive holographic projection that filled the entire space. The image showed not just Earth, but the entire galaxy, as it had existed millions of years ago. "God," breathed Captain Jinho. "Look at the scope of this." The hologram revealed a galaxy filled with thriving civilizations, all connected by a network of faster-than-light communication and travel. At the center of this network were the Star Shepherds, beings who looked unmistakably human but possessed technology that seemed to blend science with something approaching magic. Minji stepped closer to the projection. "They're showing us the golden age of galactic civilization." Fleet Admiral Young-soo had arrived from military headquarters just in time to witness the revelation. "How many worlds are we looking at?" "Millions," Hyen-woo replied, his voice filled with awe. The Star Shepherds guided the development of millions of species across the galaxy. The hologram shifted, showing the Star Shepherds in action. They traveled between worlds not as conquerors, but as teachers and protectors. When a young species developed spaceflight, the Star Shepherds were there to guide them. When conflicts arose between different worlds, the Star Shepherds mediated peace. "We were the galaxy's guardians," Sujin realized. For millions of years, humans maintained peace and progress across the entire Milky Way, but the projection was not just showing the past. It was revealing the complete truth of what had happened to end this golden age. The crystals displayed images of space itself beginning to tear apart, reality becoming unstable as a force of pure destruction spread across the galaxy. "The Great Darkness," Admiral Young-soo said, reading the symbols that appeared alongside. The images, it was consuming everything. Stars, planets, entire civilizations. Master Technician Del Su, who had been working to understand the ancient technology, stepped forward. The Star Shepherds tried to fight it conventionally first. "Look at these battle records." The hologram showed massive fleets of Star Shepherd vessels engaging something that could barely be comprehended. The enemy was not a species or even a collection of species. It was entropy itself, a force that unraveled the very fabric of space-time. "They were losing," Commander Jahai observed. She had arrived from the Space Force headquarters to witness the revelation. Their weapons couldn't affect something that existed outside normal physics. The projection continued, showing the Star Shepherds' desperate final strategy. Unable to defeat the Great Darkness through conventional means, they had chosen to sacrifice themselves to save the galaxy. The process required them to pour their collective life force into healing the damaged fabric of space-time. But they couldn't do it while maintaining their civilization, Hyen-woo realized. They had to give up everything they were. The hologram showed the Star Shepherds' final days. They had gathered their accumulated knowledge, their memories, their very essence, and hidden it in the genetic code of their species. Then they had used advanced technology to regress themselves to a primitive state, becoming the ancestors of modern humanity. "They chose to become us," Minji whispered. "They gave up godhood to save the galaxy." The revelation was not limited to Earth. On the Void Seeker, Commander Vexstar was receiving similar transmissions from crystal chambers that were activating on worlds throughout Catherian space. His science teams were analyzing the data, and their findings were reshaping everything they thought they knew about galactic history. Sir Science Officer Krelthan reported, "We've confirmed the humans' account. The Star Shepherds were real, and they were human." "Show me the evidence," Vexstar commanded. The bridge's main display filled with historical data from a dozen different worlds. Every planet in the Catherian Empire had hidden crystal chambers, and all of them were telling the same story. Star Shepherds had guided the development of Catherian civilization over 1,000,000 years ago. Our legends of the great teachers, Krelthan continued. They were referring to humans. Every story we have about the wise beings who lifted us from barbarism, they were all about the Star Shepherds. Navigation Officer Yelter looked up from his station. Sir, I'm receiving reports from our other ships. The crews are refusing to maintain attack positions. What do you mean refusing, sir? Once they learned the truth about the humans, they began to see this as a reunion rather than a first contact. Many of our soldiers are requesting permission to pay their respects to the Star Shepherds. Vexstar felt his authority slipping away. The rigid discipline that held the Catherian military together was crumbling as his troops learned they were facing their own creators. Sir, Communications Officer Tekran called out. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Human fleet? Vexstar spun around. What human fleet, sir? They appeared on our sensors 10 minutes ago. 12 vessels, configuration unknown. They're requesting permission to come aboard. On the main display, Vexstar saw ships that defied description. They were clearly human in origin, but their technology was so advanced that they seemed to exist. Partially outside normal space, the vessels moved without any visible propulsion, and their energy signatures suggested power sources that rivaled entire star systems. How did they build those ships so quickly? He demanded. Sir Krelthan replied, according to our analysis, they didn't build them. They remembered them. The ships were hidden in the same way the crystal chambers were hidden, waiting for the Star Shepherds to return. Back on Earth, the awakening was reaching its climax. Humans around the world were not just remembering their past, but actively reclaiming their heritage. Ancient manufacturing facilities buried beneath the planet's surface were coming online, producing technology that had been waiting millions of years for activation. Engineer Dong Hayan was overseeing the construction of orbital shipyards that had materialized around Earth seemingly overnight. The infrastructure was always there, he explained to a gathering of world leaders. Hidden in subspace, waiting for the right genetic triggers. Dr. Yunji was analyzing the new, faster-than-light technology that was becoming available.
This
Isn't just advanced engineering, she reported. It's a completely different understanding of physics. The Star Shepherds learned to manipulate space-time itself. Captain Ziokjin was preparing for humanity's first diplomatic mission to other species in millions of years. We're not going as supplicants, he told his crew. We're going as the returning parents of galactic civilization. The transformation was happening at a pace that seemed impossible. Humans who had been ordinary people just days before were now operating technology that surpassed anything in the galaxy. They were not learning these skills but remembering them, accessing genetic memories that had been dormant for eons. Elder Sang-ho was serving as the primary interpreter of these recovered memories. The Star Shepherds didn't just guide other species, he explained to the assembled leaders. They were the original architects of galactic civilization. Every major advancement in science, every breakthrough in technology, every step toward peace and understanding between species, it all came from human guidance. But why hide this knowledge? Asked President Chen of the United Earth Federation. Why not maintain our position as the dominant species? Because dominance was never the goal, Sang-ho replied. The Star Shepherds believed that true advancement came from cooperation, not conquest. They wanted to nurture younger species to become partners, not subjects. The holographic records supported this philosophy. The Star Shepherds had deliberately limited their own technological development in order to allow younger species to make their own discoveries. They had served as guides and protectors, intervening only when absolutely necessary. We were gardeners, Dr. Hyenwu realized, tending the garden of galactic civilization, helping every species reach its full potential. On the Void Seeker, the philosophical implications were causing a complete breakdown of military discipline. Soldiers who had been prepared to conquer Earth were now requesting permission to study human philosophy and science. Sir Yelter reported, half our crew is requesting transfer to the human ships. They want to learn from the Star Shepherds. Vexstar, looked out at the blue planet below. Everything he had believed about galactic hierarchy was wrong. Catherian Empire was not a conquering power, but a student civilization, and their teachers had finally returned. Sir Krelthon said quietly, "The humans are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss the future of galactic civilization." "What kind of future? A return to the Golden Age, sir?" "They're proposing to resume their role as Star Shepherds, but with the cooperation of all the species they once guided." The cosmic truth was complete. Humanity had not been discovered by alien explorers. Instead, the children of the galaxy had finally found their way home to their ancient teachers. The Star Shepherds had returned. The cosmos would never be the same, as the crystal chambers around Earth synchronized their final activation sequence. A message went out to every world in the galaxy. The dormant genetic memories of 1,000,000 species began to stir. The great awakening that had started on Earth began to spread across the stars. The age of forgetting was over. The time of remembering had begun. Admiral Junho stood on the bridge of the newly constructed starship Eternal Dawn, watching Earth shrink behind them as they departed for their first diplomatic mission in millions of years. The vessel had been built in just 3 days using technology that flowed from the awakened memories of human engineers across the globe. "Admiral," reported Navigation Officer Kuhnman, "all systems are responding perfectly. The ship feels alive." It was an accurate description. The Eternal Dawn was not just a machine, but a living entity. Its bioneural networks grown from Star Shepherd DNA and crystalline technology. The ship could think, adapt, and even communicate with its crew through direct neural interface. Dr. Yunji worked frantically in the ship's laboratory, analyzing the new, faster-than-light drive that had made their journey possible. "This technology doesn't just move us through space," she explained to her research team. "It folds space-time around us. We're not traveling faster than light. We're making light travel slower relative to us." The engineering principles that had once seemed impossible were now as natural as breathing to the awakened humans. Captain Seogin reviewed the diplomatic protocols that had spontaneously appeared in his memory. Procedures for first contact that had been refined over millions of years of galactic interaction. "Remember," he told his diplomatic team, "we're not here as conquerors or even as equals. We're here as the returning guardians of galactic civilization." Back on Earth, the transformation was accelerating beyond all expectations. Engineer Dong Hien supervised the construction of orbital shipyards that had materialized seemingly overnight around the planet. The structures were massive, each one capable of producing starships that dwarfed the largest vessels in the Catherian fleet. The manufacturing systems were always there, he explained to a delegation of world leaders who had come to witness the construction. Hidden in subspace, waiting for the right genetic signals to activate them. The Korean Peninsula had become the epicenter of humanity's renaissance. Ancient facilities buried beneath the mountains were coming online, producing technologies that had been dormant for eons. The cities of Seoul and Busan were transforming as Star Shepherd architecture emerged from hidden dimensions, seamlessly with modern human construction. President Kim of the Korean Federation watched in amazement as his country became the focal point of humanity's return to cosmic prominence. "How long were these facilities waiting beneath our soil?" "Millions of years," replied Elder Songho, who had become the primary interpreter of recovered Star Shepherd knowledge. Korea was chosen as one of the primary awakening sites because of its people's natural affinity for technology and their strong sense of community responsibility. The awakening was not limited to technology. Humans around the world were discovering abilities that had been locked away in their genetic code. They could interface directly with quantum computers, manipulate energy fields with their thoughts, communicate across vast distances using consciousness alone. Professor Hee Jin at Seoul National University was documenting these changes as they occurred. "We're not becoming something new," she observed. "We're remembering what we always were." The Star Shepherds didn't just guide other species. They were beings of almost unlimited potential. The news of humanity's awakening was spreading throughout the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. On distant worlds, species that had been guided by the Star Shepherds millions of years ago were beginning to experience their own awakenings. The Zephyrian Council on the far side of the galaxy called an emergency session when their own crystal chambers activated. Chancellor Morthic studied the holographic records with growing amazement. "The humans," he said to his assembled council. "They were our teachers. Everything we know about space travel, energy manipulation, and peaceful governance came from them." Similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of worlds. The crystalline entities of the Andromeda Spiral remembered the patient star shepherds who had helped them develop their unique silicon-based consciousness. The void dancers of the Outer Rim recalled how humans had taught them to navigate between dimensions. Each species was rediscovering its own connection to humanity, and many were preparing expeditions to Earth to reunite with their ancient mentors on the Void Seeker. Commander Vexstar was dealing with the complete collapse of his mission's original objectives. His crew was no longer interested in conquest or even exploration. They wanted to learn from the returning Star Shepherds. "Sir," Communications Officer Tekran reported, "we're receiving requests from our entire fleet. Every ship wants permission to establish cultural exchange programs with the humans." Cultural exchange? Vexstar struggled to understand how his military expedition had transformed into an academic mission. "Sir, the crew believes we have a unique opportunity to learn from our original teachers. Many are requesting permission to study Star Shepherd philosophy and technology." Science Officer Krelthan approached with the latest analysis from their xenobiology teams. "Sir, we've been monitoring the human population. The awakening is complete. Every human on Earth now has access to Star Shepherd memories and abilities. All of them?" "Yes, sir. From their youngest children to their oldest." "Citizens, humanity has fully reclaimed its cosmic heritage." The implications were staggering. Earth was no longer a primitive world with a few awakened individuals. It was a planet of 9 billion Star Shepherds, each one possessing knowledge and abilities that surpassed anything in the current galaxy. Sir Tekran called out again. "The humans are requesting a formal audience. They want to discuss the establishment of a new Galactic Council." Vexstar realized that his role had fundamentally changed. He was no longer an explorer discovering a new world. He was a student being summoned by ancient teachers, back on Earth. The preparations for galactic reunion were reaching completion. Admiral Junho's diplomatic mission was just the beginning. Humans were preparing to re-establish contact with every species they had once guided. Dr. Yunji developed communication protocols that could reach across the galaxy instantaneously. "We're not just sending messages," she explained. "We're reactivating the quantum consciousness network that once connected all intelligent species." The network had been dormant since the Star Shepherds went into hiding, but its infrastructure remained intact. As human technicians brought the system online, species across the galaxy found themselves able to communicate directly with Earth. Captain Seojin was coordinating the diplomatic responses as hundreds of species requested formal audiences with humanity. "They're not approaching us as strangers," he observed. "They remember us. Even after millions of years, the genetic memories of our guidance remain." The first formal delegation to arrive at Earth came from the Catherian Empire. Commander Vexstar's ship approached Earth not as a conqueror, but as a supplicant, requesting permission to enter human space. "Commander Vexstar," came the transmission from Admiral Junho. "You are welcome in our space. We have been waiting for your people to find us again." When Vexstar finally stood before the human delegation, he felt the weight of millions of years of history. These beings had guided his species from barbarism to spaceflight, and now they had returned to reclaim their role as cosmic guardians. "Star Shepherds," he said, using the ancient title that had been preserved in Catherian legends. "My people request the honor of rejoining the galactic community under your guidance." Dr. Hyanwu, now bearing the title of Prime Shepherd, smiled. "Warmly, Commander. You are never separate from the galactic community. You are our children, and we are proud of what you have accomplished in our absence." Similar reunions were taking place across the galaxy as species after species rediscovered their connection to humanity. The Void Dancers sent artistic delegations to share the music they had developed using Star Shepherd harmonics. The crystalline entities offered their computational resources to help rebuild the Galactic Communication Network. Engineer Dong Hayan was overseeing the construction of massive space stations that would serve as meeting points for the reunited galactic community. "We're not rebuilding the old civilization," he explained to his construction teams. "We're creating something new, something that incorporates everything our children have learned during our absence." The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the space between Earth and its moon, a magnificent structure that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that most species could barely comprehend. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds had gathered for the first Galactic Council in millions of years. Star Shepherd Hyenwu stood at the center of the vast chamber, looking out at the assembled delegates. Beings of every conceivable form filled the hall: the crystalline forms of the Silicon Collective, the energy beings from the Plasma Nebulae, the aquatic representatives of the ocean worlds, and hundreds of other species that had once been guided by humanity. "Friends," he began, his voice carried by quantum resonance to every mind in the assembly. "We have come together not to restore the past, but to build a better future." Ambassador So Young worked tirelessly in the diplomatic wing of the station, establishing protocols that would govern interaction between species for millennia to come. The challenge was enormous. Each species had developed its own culture and technology during humanity's absence, and many had capabilities that exceeded what the Star Shepherds had possessed in the ancient past. "We're not returning to the old hierarchy," she explained to her staff. "This will be a true partnership between equals, with humanity serving as coordinators rather than rulers." Fleet Commander Kanjo was organizing the new Galactic Defense Network. The ancient threats that had once endangered cosmic civilization were gone, but new challenges had emerged during the long interregnum. Rogue artificial intelligences, dimensional parasites, and cosmic storms threatened younger civilizations that lacked the technology to protect themselves. "Our primary mission," he told his multinational command staff, "is protection, not conquest. We defend those who cannot defend themselves, and we guide those who seek guidance." The defense network was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of relying purely on military force, it combined Star Shepherd wisdom with the innovations that other species had developed during humanity's absence. Catherian shielding technology was integrated with crystalline entity computational power and void dancer dimensional manipulation. Counselor Jin was working on the most challenging aspect of the new cosmic order, establishing the new cosmic covenant. This document would define the principles that would govern galactic civilization for the foreseeable future. The old covenant was based on the idea that wisdom flows from teacher to student, she explained to the drafting committee. The new covenant recognizes that wisdom can emerge from any source, and that even the most advanced civilizations can learn from their children. Commander Vexstar had undergone a transformation that amazed even himself. The proud Catherian military officer had requested admission to the Star Shepherd Corps, becoming the first non-human to bear the ancient title. "I spent my entire career believing that strength came from dominance," he told the assembly during his formal induction ceremony. "The Star Shepherds have taught me that true strength comes from service." His admission to the Corps was symbolic of the new galactic order. Humanity would no longer bear the burden of cosmic guardianship alone. The most gifted individuals from every species would be invited to join the Star Shepherds, creating a truly representative force for galactic protection. Youngji had become the lead scientist for the new Cosmic Research Initiative. Her team was investigating phenomena that had emerged during humanity's absence, including signals from distant galaxies that suggested the existence of other cosmic civilizations. "We're not alone in the universe," she reported to the assembly. "There are other galactic communities beyond our own, and some of them are facing threats that we might be able to help them overcome." The implications were staggering. Humanity had spent millions of years as guardians of their own galaxy. But now they were being called to extend their protection across the cosmic void to civilizations they had never encountered. Engineer Donghan was already designing the infrastructure that would make intergalactic travel possible. The new ships would be larger than anything previously imagined, city-sized vessels capable of carrying entire diplomatic missions across the void between galaxies. "We're not just building ships," he explained to his construction teams. Building mobile civilizations that can serve as bridges between different cosmic communities. As the assembly continued its deliberations, younger humans were preparing for roles they could barely comprehend. Children across Earth were displaying abilities that surpassed even the awakened adults. They could manipulate matter at the quantum level, communicate across dimensional barriers, perceive patterns in space-time that revealed the hidden structure of the universe. Young Minho, only 12 years old, had become the primary interface for the quantum consciousness network. His mind could process information from millions of sources simultaneously, making him invaluable for coordinating galactic communications. The children are not just inheriting our legacy, observed Elder Sangho, they're surpassing it. New generation of Star Shepherds is more capable than the last. Student Nayoung, studying at the newly established Galactic Academy in Seoul, was learning to navigate between dimensions. Her training involved visiting other realities where the Star Shepherds had made different choices, learning from the mistakes and successes of alternate histories. We're not just preparing to guide our own galaxy, she explained to her classmates. We're preparing to help shape the development of the entire universe. The scope of humanity's responsibility was expanding beyond anything they had previously imagined. The awakening had revealed that their role as Star Shepherds was not limited to the Milky Way. They were part of a cosmic ecosystem that spanned multiple galaxies, each one at different stages of development. Commander Vexstar approached Star Shepherd Hyanwu with a proposal that would test the limits of the new cosmic order. The signals from the Andromeda Galaxy suggest a civilization in crisis. They're facing something similar to the great darkness that once threatened our own galaxy. Are you suggesting we intervene? I'm suggesting we offer to help, not as conquerors, or even as saviors, but as partners in cosmic development. It was a radical proposal. Humanity had always focused on protecting and guiding younger civilizations within their own galaxy. Extending that protection to other galaxies would require resources and commitment on a scale that had never been attempted. The decision must be made by the full assembly, Hyanwu replied. This is not a choice for humanity alone. When the proposal was presented to the Galactic Assembly, the response was overwhelming. Every major species volunteered to contribute to the intergalactic mission. The Catharians offered their military expertise. The crystalline entities provided computational support, and the Void Dancers volunteered to serve as scouts in the dimensional spaces between galaxies. We stand together, declared Chancellor Morthic of the Zephyrian Council. As the Star Shepherds once lifted us up, now we will lift up others. Fleet Commander Kanjo began immediate preparations for the most ambitious mission in galactic history. The expedition to Andromeda would include representatives from every major civilization, traveling in ships that combined the best technology from across the galaxy. This is our graduation, he told his staff. For millions of years, humanity guided the development of galactic civilization. Now, galactic civilization is ready to guide the development of cosmic civilization. As the great ships prepared for departure, children across Earth gathered in schools and parks to watch the launch. They understood, with the clarity that comes from awakened genetic memory, that they were witnessing the beginning of a new age in cosmic history. Young Taewon, standing in a playground in Seoul, looked up at the stars and spoke words that captured the moment perfectly. We're going home again. Not to the home we lost, but to the home we're going to build. The ships departed Earth's orbit in a formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers. I'd say activated their intergalactic drives. Space itself seemed to bend and flow around them. They were not just traveling to another galaxy. They were carrying the hope and wisdom of an entire cosmic community to civilizations that had never known such guidance. Star Shepherd Hyanwu remained on Earth, coordinating the continuing development of galactic civilization while the expedition traveled to Andromeda. His role had evolved from awakened human to cosmic coordinator, helping to manage relationships between civilizations that spanned multiple galaxies. The Star Shepherds are no longer just human, he reflected as he watched the ships disappear into the cosmic void. We have become something larger. We are the collective consciousness of every species that chooses to protect and guide others. The expedition reached the edge of the galaxy, Signals began arriving from even more distant cosmic communities. The universe was vast beyond imagination, and it was filled with civilizations at every stage of development. Some were facing threats that required immediate assistance. Others were ready to join the growing network of cosmic guardians. The children of Earth looked up at the night sky, no longer seeing distant points of light, but recognizing each star as a potential home for beings who might need their help. They were the next generation of star shepherds, and their playground would be the entire universe. The cosmic order had been re-established. But it was different from what had come before. It was larger, more inclusive, and more hopeful. Humanity had learned humility through their long exile, and they had emerged from that experience ready to serve not as rulers, but as partners in the endless task of nurturing cosmic civilization. The journey home was complete, but the greater journey had just begun.